Hello Year 6 and welcome to your second science lesson. Today's learning objective is to look at why we need to classify animals. Okay, get your pencil and paper ready. We're going to start off our lesson with our knowing more, remembering more, and we will move on to that right now. Okay, so true or false? Humans have backbones. True or false? Number 2, top right, multiple choice. What type of questions do you ask in order to sort organisms? Is it an open question, a closed question, both of them, or neither of them? So what type of questions do you ask in order to sort out organisms? Is it open questions, closed questions, both of them, or neither of them? Recall. What are humans, dolphins, and snails? What are humans, dolphins, and snails? And looking back, what is meant by survival of the fittest? What is meant by survival of the fittest? Give you 10 seconds and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, question 1. So humans have backbones is true. Humans do, we all have a spine. The multiple choice, what type of questions do we ask in order to sort an organism? It is closed questions. The recall, what are humans, dolphins, and snails? We are all animals. And finally, what is meant by survival of the fittest? It means animals that are best adapted to their environment will survive and reproduce to create the next generation. So it's how animals have adapted to survive in their locale. Okay, so the success criteria today, we're going to be learning to define classification, naming some kingdoms and sorting organisms into them, and describing similarities and differences between vertebrate and invertebrate groups. Okay, so recent estimates indicate that there are over 8 million different species of organism on the planet. But so far, only 1.3 million have been categorized. So it's still an awful long way to go. Classification makes sense because there's such a huge diversity of the amounts and types of animals and creatures that we can't organize them into smaller groups. We have to split them off and make it very clear. So classification, define classification. Pause the video, 30-second chat, and come back and we'll go through the answers. What is classification? Pause the video, please. Okay, let's see if you're all right. So classification is a way of grouping different living things together by their features. Well done to those of you who got it right. Fantastic, pat on the back. So let's move on. Looking at all these animals, we've got a mushroom, we've got trees, we've got tigers, we've got mice, spiders, gorillas, flowers, loads of different types of animals. What would be the best way to group these? What is the least number of groups we can use? And what is the most number of groups you can use? Pause the video now, have a discussion, and try and sort them out into groups. Give yourself 5 minutes, see how well you get, then come back and we'll continue with the lesson. Pause now, please. Okay, fantastic. Let's see how we could have grouped them. Okay, when sorting, you need to speak and think like a scientist. You need to think of appropriate questions that you may ask a naturalist in order to determine the groups of organisms should be in. You really need to think logically and broadly to get them down to smaller groups as possible. These questions should take into account the differences between the groups. And we're not talking just about slight differences, we're talking about very big characteristical featural differences. So let's have a look. Does it have fur? Does it have legs? Is it a plant? Is it an animal? So you could have grouped your animals like this. You've got all the animals in the big circle here. They're all animals. Then you've got plants. And you've also got bacteria. So you could have grouped them like that. You could have grouped them like this. Mushrooms as a fungi, and you've got bacteria. You've also got fish. You've got without legs. You've got insects. You've got arachnids and crustaceans. You've got plants. And then you've got animals. So you've got different ways of grouping it. Can you group the pictures into 4 main groups? What would we call these 4 main groups? Well, what we'd call these 4 main groups would be Animals, plants, fungi, and microorganisms. We said that a minute ago. Okay, fungi would be mushrooms. Fun fact, did you know that mushrooms are not plants? They're actually a fungus. And some of you go, I don't like mushrooms anyway. But yes, they're actually quite tasty, and there are fungus. And there's actually several different types of them. Again, with the rest of them, animals, plants, and microorganisms. Micro meaning small, and organism means living thing. A lot of microorganisms are unable to see by the eye. For example, coronavirus is a microorganism virus that is unable to see by the visually. So again, you need microscopes and things like that, but they're very small, micro, really, really small. Okay. Can you explain why you put them into these groups? Well, putting them into these groups, it gives a broad category, but then within these categories, we can then decipher and split them up into smaller groups by using their features within them. Okay, there are 5 kingdoms. The first big division of the living things is putting them into one of 5 kingdoms. Okay, here's the 5 kingdoms: animals, plants, fungi, prokaryotes, and protists. Now, both of these groups are microorganisms, but we will keep calling them microorganisms for now. We're not going to keep changing the names for now, okay? So let's do a bit quick check. True or false? Classification is the grouping of organisms. True or false? 5 seconds. The answer is true. Well done. Question 2. Observational characteristics are things you can see. True or false? The answer is true. Question 3. I could use a line graph for grouping. True or false? The answer is false. You'd use a Venn diagram, you'd use a tree diagram, or you'd use a Carroll diagram. Number 4, there are 3 kingdoms. True or false? The answer is false. There are 5 kingdoms. Question 5, a platypus is a mammal. True or false? The answer is true, it is. Question 6, microorganisms can only be seen with a microscope. The answer is true. Okay, so now we've named the kingdoms and we've defined what classification is. Let's look at some similarities and differences in between the groups, okay? So could we split these groups even further? Okay, so we've got our groups here with animals, the plants, the fungi, the prokaryotes, and the protists. Okay, so let's look at animals. Could you take one of the groups and then split it into even more groups where both are in the same kingdom? So we're both in the same kingdom, sorry, but are we the same? So it's like comparing humans and snails. Both animals, but are we both in the same kingdom? Well, are we both the same? Let's have a look. How could we sort these animals? Have a think to yourself, pause the video, have a discussion. How could we sort all of these animals? Pause the video and continue when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you've had an idea of how you sorted them, a good discussion, and given reasons for how and why you've sorted them out. Let's have a look. Think back to year 4, if you haven't done it yet. Can you sort them into vertebrates and invertebrates? Remember, a vertebrate is an animal with a spine or a backbone. Okay, so a quick classification of these animals. Vertebrates are known as chordata. Okay, also known as chordata because the word chord is like spinal cord. That's how you got vertebrae. Okay, so if we look back at the animals, you could have sorted them like this. So all the animals above the line have got a spine, they've got a backbone, and all the animals below do not. They usually have some sort of shell. It could be an exoskeleton or some sort of shell to help keep the shape of their animal. Some of them don't at all. It's interesting is like the jellyfish has something totally different. Okay. But can we now look at just looking at the vertebrates? Can we make this group even smaller? Have a think to yourself. Can we make this group even smaller? Well, yes, we can. We can group them into mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, and amphibians. Okay? And all of them have different features, which is really important. And that's how we can group them into them groups. So vertebrates, Animals can be divided into two groups based upon the presence or absence of a backbone. Vertebrates are animals with a backbone. Vertebrates can be divided again into 5 groups. Animals in each group share certain features, so we can group them again. Mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Okay, so now we're going to make some notes. Okay, I'm going to go for each one of the 5 groups of animals within the animal kingdom, and I would like you to make notes on each one. Okay, get yourself a pen and paper. You might want to pause the video here just so you can get yourself ready. When you're ready, you can continue the video. Pause now, please. Okay, hopefully now you're ready. We can get on with the rest of the lesson. Okay, so you should make your notes looking like this. So write the subheading. So mammal, for example, warm-blooded and fur, and then every change group, just write a new subheading and underline it. So mammals, okay? Let's have a look of the notes we can make. They are vertebrates. They are warm-blooded. They give birth to live young. Their females produce milk to feed their young. They grow hair or fur. They have lungs to breathe. There are about 5,000 species of mammal. They are found on the land, in the oceans, and in fresh water. Some examples of these animals are mouse, lion, monkeys, whales, and humans. You may want to pause the video now just so you can make a few notes before we move on. Pause now, please. Okay, let's move on to the next group. The next group is birds. Okay, birds have vertebrae. They have 2 wings. They're warm-blooded. They lay eggs. They have feathers. They have 2 legs. There are about 10,000 species of birds, and they are found flying in the skies, swimming in the seas, wading in rivers and lakes. Some examples of these birds are parrots, pigeons, and penguins. You may want to pause the video now just to make a few extra notes and give yourself a bit more time. So pause the video now and then continue when you've finished. Okay, let's continue with the next group. Reptiles. So reptiles also have vertebrae. Reptiles have dry skin. They also have scaly skin. They are cold-blooded, so need a lot of they take a lot of their heat from the sun. They usually lay eggs. They breathe air. There are over 5,000 species. Most of these are snakes and lizards, however, and they are generally found on land, in oceans, and in fresh water. Examples of these animals are crocodiles, snakes, lizards, and turtles. Okay, pause the video now to give yourself a little bit of extra time to continue writing your notes down. Press play again when you are ready to move on to the next group. Okay, let's move on to the next group. Amphibians. So amphibians have vertebrae. They have moist, scaleless skin. They are also cold-blooded. They breathe oxygen through lungs. They lay eggs. They live on land and in water also. There are about 5,000 species of amphibian, and they are found on land and in fresh water. So examples of amphibians are frogs, toads, newts, and salamanders. Okay, you might want to pause the video again now so you can make a few extra notes before pressing play and continuing. Okay, and moving on to fish. So fish also have vertebrae, are cold-blooded. They're covered with scales. They have thin paired fins. They breathe underwater through their gills. They lay lots of eggs. Many of them have bony skeletons. There are about 25,000 species of fish. And they make up most of the fish that swim in seas, rivers, and lakes. So examples are salmon, tuna, goldfish, and seahorse. Again, you might want to pause the video so you can continue making notes and press play to continue. Okay, so let's move on and look at invertebrates. Now, these are animals without a backbone or a spine. Okay, so we've got arachnids and spiders, we've got butterflies, insects, and we've got crustaceans, and we've got a crab there. Okay, so let's look at these. So about 97% of animals are invertebrates, which is actually quite astounding. None that there's so many that are vertebrates, but there are about 30 million species in the world. Okay, so can we sort these invertebrates by common features? So pause the video, have a good try, see if you can sort them out into different types of groups or how many groups you can think of, or even the smallest number of groups. Pause your video now, have a chat, and then come back when you're ready to continue. Okay, fantastic. Welcome back. Hopefully you sorted them into several types of groups in different ways as well. And let's continue to see how we can get on. So you may have sorted them like this. Starfish, you've got arachnids, you've got insects that have claws, you've got worms, you've also got jellyfish grouped separately, and then you've got slugs and snails. Okay, invertebrates groups would be familiar, invertebrate groups you would be most familiar with would be insects, spiders and arachnids, mollusks, which include snails, and worms. Okay, it's really important that we don't classify spiders as insects because they're not. Okay, and if we look at the grid over on this side, you've got the protozoa, which are single cell organisms, which are microscopic. You've got flatworms, such as tapeworms or flukes. You've got annelid worms, which are like earthworms that you'd find in gardens. You've got echinoderms, which are spiny sea creatures like starfish and sea urchins. You've got soft-bodied stinging cells, so like jellyfish. You've got which these classify as arthropods, okay? And then you've got the mollusks, which are soft-bodied. Most have shells like snails and limpets are found in the ocean. And then you've got your arachnids, your crustaceans, your insects, and your myriapods. Okay, so that's how we can group invertebrates officially. So we're going to pause the videos now, and I want you to draw out that diagram and write down the groups and any keynotes from there. And when you're ready to continue, press play. Pause now, please. Okay, let's continue. So we've now gone through all of the groups, and we've actually classified and described the similarities and differences between vertebrates and invertebrates as well. Okay, so let's review our knowledge. Name the 3 kingdoms we can see with just our eyes. I think the answer are animals, plants, and fungi. Question 2. Name the 2 groups of animal kingdom is split up into. Name the 2 groups of animal kingdom is split into. The answer is vertebrate and invertebrate. Number 3. What is another word used for the vertebrate group? It is chordata. Remember, chord is the shortened word for the spinal cord, which gives you the clue. Number 4, name 5 chordata groups. 5 chordata groups. The answers are mammal, bird, reptile, fish, and amphibian. Question 5, what is the common name for the arachnid? What is the common name for the arachnid? It is the spider. And if you have a fear of spiders, you have something that is called arachnophobia. So that has come to the end of our lesson, Year 6. You've done very well today. Can you make sure you do the quiz on Purple Mash? And I will see you for your next lesson. Have a good day.